In a Strange Book by Chris Klein, Part 2, Alchemy and Twin Flames. The Great Work. At the end of the last writing, I said I needed to learn some deeper truths before getting back to this writing. 5 years later, here I sit knowing even less today than I did back then. In fact, I know nothing. The mind just cannot comprehend and put into logical labels things only the heart can understand. We come into this incarnation with everything already within us we could ever want. The task is to get the I out of the way in order to let the light shine through and across the plane of time. The I is further reinforced by the experiences of this world. This ego must become aligned with the divinity within us. Do not get me wrong about the terms light and shine. I am not referring to a carefree spirit that sees no problems in the world. Light takes on any shade of what the mind labels, be it dark or bright. And when I use shine in the term of light, I allude to the energy you give. You do not even have to think about this. It just happens, and not all is perfectly well with all things when it comes to our minds. The process the substance goes through for transformation, like our egoic minds and restless souls, is known as alchemy, and is part of all natural processes. Inner work on the emotion and mind of an individual in order to see with the eyes of the heart, or align the mind's eye with the art, is the great work of the ages. This work is not easy. It has no end, as long as the brain is firing and the experiences of this life go on. Like a never-ending movie, we play our roles throughout life, wear our masks, and memorize our lines for so long we lose touch with what is within us very easily. At some point, we must ground or we crash and become grounded, stranded even, on the atoll of the sea of life. We come back to ourselves whether we want to or not. And this process is as natural as the leaves changing in the fall upon the trees. Voluntarily committing to some form of introspection, be it through meditation or expression of art, can make this process less intrusive. We must evolve and change within, and no one gets around this. Our minds must rectify what it takes in and process our surroundings, even if it waits until we are exhausted and sleep comes upon us. If it does not align with our hearts, we become unbalanced, and in the end, we do not fully change as well as we could. Life goes on. We add on top of that unbalanced frame even more until we become leaning towers, not quite able to reach the stars we would like to or even endeavor to within our souls. This is why the basis of understanding of alchemy can assist us in this journey, as we can make sense of our path and see how it will play out as we advance in this great work. The human mind is conditioned to observe cause and effect, meaning we see a situation that needs changed, we apply a solution, and then we see the results. But what made the change from point A to point B? The ego says my solution or the application of it. On the outside, this has truth in a sense, but on a deeper level, you are just the tool used. The actual change is not so well defined. It is more of an esoteric nature, and the change laid within whatever was worked upon, almost if programmed that way. The solution was a mere catalyst. Furthermore, the end result still contains an essence of what it was before the catalyst, but it had been transformed. That transformation, or the substance itself of transmutation, appears to be foreign from all the processes. Yet it permeates the end result into something new. The cause and effect are interdependent, one and the same. The old philosophical question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Yet we know every egg contains a chicken, and vice versa. This is an important illustration I will come back to, as a logical thinker can discern. A hen has the structure, the rooster has the sperm, but neither of those two contain the whole essence of a live embryo until the two meet. It is by that meeting that another miracle happens, new life. It is that we are focusing on here. This is alchemy in its most simplest terms. It is in all things. Many think of alchemy as someone working in an old basement in the Middle Ages turning lead into gold, or a scientist, chemist in a lab creating medicines. An old man in the woods making moonshine is also another form of this alchemy, or the big-name distillers mass-producing your favorite beverages. This physical or chemical alchemy has behind it hidden meanings, maybe not so obvious to the casual observer. As decaying matter in the forest grows mycelium in the earth below it, Time and heat bring forth life in the form of a mushroom, whose spores are blown by the wind to settle elsewhere on the decay of tomorrow of that which is to die today. This eternal cycle goes on within the confines of time. The Stages of Alchemy. This writing is by no means an encyclopedic discourse on alchemy. That is a subject for which there are filled volumes of material over the course of eons. The testimony of time shows our understanding or labeling of the great work has expanded and contracted throughout the ages. Not only the order of the stages, but the number of them as well has gone through revision. Just as in baking, the perfect cake varies from recipe to recipe, all instances start with separate materials that go through a preparation and baking process to emerge as a cake. Laying all the ingredients out on a table and saying, "There is your cake," does not literally define it. Yet it is true to the more seasoned of cooks. They know time must involve a process to arrive at the end result of a finished cake. This process and the steps would be diverse over individuals and the course of the ages, as better and faster ways are invented to perform culinary arts. To say there is only one right way to bake a cake is true only in just baking it. All other ways are limited by the beholder's experience and understanding and come from a place of ego, the very place alchemy is at work to transform. The whole purpose of getting into the topic of alchemy is to illustrate a further concept of twin souls or twin flames, so I am going to stick with the most basic and universal system of alchemy that expands upon what we have already laid in our foundation back in part 1, and that is the 7 stages. 1. Calcination, the breakdown of a substance using pressure. 2. Dissolution, washing the substance of all leftover breakdown. 3. Separation, drying to extract the previous 2 impurity. 4. Conjunction, unifying those 2 into a new substance. 4. Putrefaction, fermenting the new in darkness, heat, and time. 6. Distillation, sublimating by air, fire, water into matter or earth. 7. Coagulation, allowing the new substance to harden and season. I will proceed to give a brief overview of these stages. Calcination. No life nor work performed is absolutely free of that which could not have been improved upon in human terms. One could say from a quantum perspective right now it is perfect. But by adding the term now, we assume past and future, because this is how our minds work. So within our mind, we can only see that right now a situation is how it is, and we can compare it to what we have seen or what we would imagine it to be. It does not matter how much one believes, has faith, remains as positive as one can. There are other observers here, and comparisons arise as a natural law. One's own heart as well should convince them that the only perfection their life has is right now, and their past and future are perfect only in imperfection. Yet within all things contains the seed or salt of perfection, a copy of a blueprint that builds towards perfection, which is immortal and beyond our comprehension. Extracting that seed of perfection to build upon, one must break down that work in order to find it. One could create an artistic masterpiece hailed as perfect, but a more seasoned or saltier artist would notice a flaw, and on this goes into infinity. Mankind finding absolute perfection is an illusion, because it is based on what we already know as great work. We can break down and analyze anything done, and see what we deem as good or bad by our own judgment. Yet the effort into the work comes from a primordial substance called Tantra that goes beyond desire. So we must strip away all judgments to find this, and that is done by fire or heat. It can be done in the form of flames or acid, it does not matter, but pressure takes away all that is not of the desired effect. In practical terms, this can be performed on a piece of wood in your own backyard or fireplace. Set the wood ablaze under great heat until the flame dies. You are left with a chalky-looking substance that will no longer produce any flame whatsoever. All the substance within it is gone, yet it is not, for you see the remains. Touch them, and watch them give way to your finger as it were an illusion. It is the skeletal remains of its solid form. Your life is like this. All our lives are like this. We can look at them and see where things may have been more fruitful had we gone another way or exercised a different decision. But how were we to know this? Hindsight is 2020. We did exactly as we were supposed to do because we live by this frame called time. Without time, there is no matter to even perform a life here. But within, we knew the more fruitful way. So how do we bring it out? At a soul level, in spiritual terms, we adapt to our current situation in order to live through it. No matter how enlightened one claims they cannot elude this or they will perish and die. We refer to this as common sense, really, and is learned by experience. It is foolish to think a newborn child can go out and get a job and shop in order to sustain their life. But they do learn that crying brings relief, and by reaching out, they will receive. This forms a belief over time, knowledge, and is amalgamated within an individual and becomes part of their identity or ego. They become conditioned by their surroundings and their choices within those, the reward and risk associated with them. The imperfection in this arises when the rewards and risks change and time marches on and the surroundings change. If the individual does not learn new ways, they will quickly learn that standing in a restaurant crying is not going to get food brought to them. While this may seem like a silly and simple explanation for growth, it applies at a much deeper level. The deepest is pain and involves the area of risk. We learn young not to touch the hot flame, but when it involves our emotions, we begin to believe not to touch a stove for that matter, a match, any fuel. Better yet, do not even go out in the sun. The past has made that person a prisoner. We do this with ourselves and others because it will not be perfect, and we will find flaws that lead to pain. These judgments must be stripped away and the pain embraced in order to learn or unlearn what we have held onto for survival. Not our common sense nor brainwashing into someone else's beliefs, but our own new outlook based on us, our soul, that flightless bird who has yet to learn to fly and is stuck within its cage singing away in the darkness. Calcinations throws open the door of the cage and evicts our young bird into the harsh world and exposes its beliefs as elusive as those ashes of the burned up log in the fireplace. Show us your soul to the bone. Take away the irrational parts of the feminine. Dissolution. As calcination can be said to be the breakdown of irrational emotions, here we come to the rational thought representing the masculine and throw it into the water or unconscious, true consciousness of the sacred feminine. This is the further breakdown of logical reasons for why those old emotions are being held onto or have formed the reasons for motivation. As the first stage can be considered trials, this stage forms the tears where the mind begins to realize, I do not know. The recipe was written with so much planning and care, in a linear manner that should have brought about the desired results, yet it needs refining. The bird could not think its way out of the cage, and points A and B did not lead to point C, and all the order came about as an illusion, as the ashes were revealed to be. Here we must go humbly deep within, and search for the answers in the unknown waters of the substance of dreams. The higher mind baptizes the initiate into a new relationship with the soul, one of wonder, mystery, but infinite possibility. One could argue at this point one is reconciled with Source, the wellspring from which all life flows, and a reliance is reaffirmed that the experiences of this life are not the only substance from which to draw from. Judgment that was abandoned in the first stage is replaced by that which was rejected by the logical mind. One could also call this a stage of shadow work, where the rational thought process deemed useless shows itself as having just as much use and place as what the ego has adopted. What appeared as nothing but ashes now becomes prima materia, from which to build upon a new foundation all that can be imagined. Just as a bath can wash away the impurities, here further impurities of the ego are stripped away, first by fire, now by water. The bird has gone through the masculine fire and the feminine waters, and the unrefined traits of both polarities has revealed that it was the duality of life the ego has based its chess game upon, because that is the way of the world. Here the soul begins to see a more higher place from whence it came. Separation. By the refining fire of the sacred masculine stripped away the irrational emotions, the cooling water of the sacred feminine dissolved the concrete mind, and two are left with pure opposites. A common symbol that comes to mind is the Yin Yang, another gold and silver, sun and moon, an endless allegory of duality. Only in this there is a deeper meaning beyond mere duality. As above, so below is the essence of the previous two stages, but here we begin to see a merging of the two. Soul and spirit stand apart, but the new vision, the gold, can fathom a union of these two. But first we must inspect that the two are as pure as can possibly be at this stage. Our flightless black crow has transformed into two white birds, which symbolize all that is pure of those masculine and feminine aspects that were imprisoned within the bird. The purest soul and spirit then could be extracted from the start. Remember, we can only work with the base from the start, and the less experienced and advanced the base, the less there is to work with. Thus, the results here are not going to be left with much to work with on, say, someone young in life, who has really not yet had a need to leave that cage. In time, the ego grows and advances, and the heart stores up fears and pain until the age of maturity is reached. Life itself is alchemy, and the individual is forced into the fires eventually. It is best to begin this work sooner rather than later, as resistance to this process only leads to greater grief. That grief comes from the fact that although in pure form, these two forces are still opposing one another. Soul and spirit are trying to fly off in different directions, but tethered by an unseen body. This body is the imagined peace that inevitably must come about between the two, which is only perception, as they are truly one, as is soon to be revealed to our fragmented bird. Conjunction. I'm going to spend a little more time on this stage, as it is more of a history than the others, and it illustrates where we're going with the topic of twin flames in the best manner. While I stated in the beginning there were other numbers of stages given throughout the history of alchemy, I also stated there were different orders. Conjunction is the very last stage of alchemy to some ancient alchemists. Keep in mind from the start, judgments of the right way or wrong way of going about all this are what we unlearn. There is a natural process to things, but what one labels is still of the ego, which is always subject to change. Therefore, conjunction has switched places with coagulation and become more the middle stage for good reasons too. This stage is all about the emergence of the heart that has the eye to see. In the last stage, separation, we saw our two birds of soul and spirit fly away. This is a symbolic departure of duality. We are left with the purest forms of the masculine and feminine qualities that will combine into one. This is the alchemical marriage that produces the philosopher's stone, or child, called Hermes. How this marriage takes place varies over the ages, and keep in mind these two forms of masculine and feminine are still not the absolute, as they are still bound and tethered to form here, but have the essence or quintessence revealed to them. These two marry one another and produce a child. The two become one. The illustrations of this are also endless, but mind and body form the heart by passing away their internal natures for the greatest good. In short, they die and a new creation is formed. The king and queen are illustrated by a vertical and horizontal line, and when these two come together, they form a cross. Upon this cross, the separate identities of the king and queen must be crucified in order to bring about union. This union was hinted at in separation stage during the fighting and opposing, which begged for reconciliation. This reconciliation is the abandonment of dual motivation into one purpose, which is the singleness represented by the child. As you can see, this is actually very natural, and what a husband and wife are meant to do in order to preserve and build their home or family. They sacrifice their wants and desires for that union of home. However, let me be clear here that what I'm referring to here is to happen within, at a personal and individual level. This is the giving up of what we have seen as values, but are actually one-sided and built out of protection by our own egos. What we have identified with and labeled ourselves as, which has limited us and blocked out all that can be. Newer philosophies, like finding the child within, stem from this and can be harkened back to Carl Jung in the 20th century, or Jungian psychology, Freud as well. Transmuting the traumas of childhood have become commonplace in therapies, but really in essence, it is conjunction that is being used to create a new outlook on life. This must happen within, and as we have seen from the previous stages, there is pain, and this stage is very painful. In fact, many of those within the spiritual communities today will not cross this barrier, and probably why this stage was the very last stage, and the Hermetic Child was just an abstract form during this stage in ancient times. We did see the child's need in the last stage during the quarreling king and queen. Thus, at this stage, he is considered today the lesser stone. In other versions, it is the lesser stone who then must be put to death on the cross that the king and queen left upon their departure. So the Hermetic Child is slain. This imagery is obviously very common in Rosicrucian and Christian alchemy and can be traced back easily to Egypt and the Osirian mysteries, along with common themes from the Vedic scripts. It is also of note here that the king, queen, and child make up the three, and this trinity is illustrated time and again across all cultures in the theme the same. The three sacrifice themselves for the advancement of the all. How this symbology may have gotten pushed aside from where we're going in this order could very well have come about by animosity of the Christian church and a distinct separation of the theme. Again, as I stated, you will find ego among us all, as you very well should, because we are still living in this flesh, so we are still within our own cages, the frames of bones that hold us here. Either way, what this stage teaches us the most is we do not need anything else nor anyone else to complete us, only that which has already been granted us by the One, the eye that is stamped on the heart of the individual, and they begin to see the truth of their own existence and all that is around them. The duality vanishes, and the separated identity, with it, they have constructed for themselves. This is extremely painful, and why these stages are in cycles, and why I wrote before, the earlier the better to begin this great work. We often just play the role we see in society and look for that completeness in things outside of ourselves. It is a natural process, actually. We must eat, be clothed, housed, have material goods in order to survive. The Hermetic Child is often portrayed as a two-faced entity because it knows our needs are given to us in order to learn an even greater and deeper lesson. It has a secret not many want to accept about themselves that transcends what society teaches. Within us all, what we would label, as we have seen, as order versus chaos, albeit the versus part is a drama played out on the stage of life. At this point in the alchemical process, we see they are actually working in harmony to bring about a greater revelation. You will often meet people who claim love and light all around, but have buried deep within them dark and toxic traits from past trauma. We all do this. Just as you may meet the darkest and most intimidating ego who will cry at the most touching moment. These labels are part of our egoic identity that affirm daily, I am blank, fill in the blank. This gives a false security that in the stage of conjunction should have long been shown as elusive, and something that will be dealt with during the first two stages at another time. So to hammer all this home, the true twin flame is within you, and the search for it out there is an endeavor counter to everything we have just went over about alchemy. Alchemy has a way of severing all that is not working in your behalf, because alchemy is working to the betterment of everything to realize the all. It is within you and cannot be gotten around, and the androgyny of the Hermetic Child illustrates this. While the all is in everything and the everything realizing the all seems like a paradox, we are speaking of evolution of prima materia and its ability to manifest new forms in the scope of why and the hows, as I stated, are in many texts throughout the ages, and not what this writing is intended to do. In short, we are living out the expression of the story of that which is perfect in a myriad of ways, actors and actresses in a play. Putrefaction fermentation. As we have just learned in the previous stage, whether it is the king and queen, the child, or all three, someone is going to die. And if someone is going to die, then they are going to be buried also. This stage is actually a twofold stage, and another reason why the number of stages has changed. The first half is putrefaction, and the latter half is called fermentation, although you will see these two flipped in order. The remainders of the masculine and feminine that did not fly off with the two white birds came together and formed the child, which put them to death in doing so. This duality merged, and their former states were then buried. On the other hand, as it was stated, the child is also put to death and buried. This is why in that stage it is referred to as the lesser stone, as there is a transmutation must go through in order to emerge as the true stone. The soul and spirit we saw in separation merged within conjunction and lay within the rotting corpse in this stage, transforming it. In case you have not picked up by now, the cycle of alchemy has within it sub-cycles that appear to be the same cycles repeating themselves. This is somewhat true, but at deeper levels of substance being worked. Yet this conjoined soul and spirit reside within the being, and it begins to change its composition. It breaks it down at a much deeper level, the actual core of itself. We can use an allegorical DNA mutation here, or any number of illustrations. Ascension, enlightenment, awakening, rapture, or any term you may hear that denotes change can apply. As decomposition takes place, it may appear that all is lost, and death will overtake the life that once was. However, anyone who has watched a compost rot will know a liquid substance begins to form, often shiny and colorful, and a new life emerges. Our bird becomes a peacock. The caterpillar is a chrysalis, and all is not lost. Fermentation permeates the substance, the new life. Distillation. The liquid from the previous stage is taken, put under fire and boiled, cooled in the air from which falls a whole new substance into form. At this stage, if anything was left out or not processed in the previous stage, it will manifest itself here. This is a process that occurs in the forms of the other stages, but this stage is a much more concentrated version. The flow of chi or kundalini within is an illustration of distillation. The facts of life put us under the fire, and the resolve within that we learned in all the other stages emerges to guide us in our new decisions. Our intent sublimates into a manifested world here. This is an ongoing process within each breath you take. Life is flowing through you and across your being. Beyond breath, what one could call the ether is surrounding you in a liquid transforming your aura. Not to get too new age sounding here, but your whole being of life is flowing outwards and inwards connected to source, in a flow that propels you to act. And your every moment you are putting forth this energy, and this stage would best be suited to match what many would call your vibration. This would be your Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, channels called nadis that run through your spine, and why you do chakra meditation. These channels are also shown in the Kabbalah. Coagulation. Here's the stage where the child emerges from the tomb, empowered with the essence that came from the distillation. This is a fusion of all into the new creation, and the child is born again. Spirit has fused with body, mind, and soul, and a true heart. The philosopher's stone has come about. This stage is illustrated by the queen, which is divine presence within the consciousness of the being. The tantric forces that shape all of creation have forged a new being from the former. This is called Ultimo Materia among the alchemists of old, and as it cools and hardens, it becomes part of the human, replacing the false ego with that of a mind and heart in line with the divine will that governs all things. This new being is also androgynous, as it is the same child as before, only having gone through a metamorphism. The butterfly emerges from the chrysalis. Having been raised from what appeared as its death and demise, it shines a new beautiful creation from the ashes of the former. Recall we started this with ashes and calcination. Exactly what changed it lies well beyond this process of material, but a miraculous divinity we can only see the echoes of. We cannot truly define it with limited human words here. We can only illustrate through symbols that teach a deeper esoteric truth to assist the aspirant through this journey from ashes to stone. For as the child hardens and grows accustomed to its new form, it will once again be thrown in the fire of calcination, and the process starts all over again until finally life falls from the being, and they go to their literal grave, where they will finally receive the absolute stone. Our bird has emerged a phoenix. So for the overview of alchemy, 1. Calcination is the root chakra. 2. Dissolution is the sacral chakra. 3. Separation is the solar plexus chakra. 4. Conjunction is the heart chakra. 5. Putrefaction is the throat chakra. 6. Distillation is the third eye chakra. 7. Coagulation is the crown chakra. And the 3 stages of the stone are the same stages of Tantra: white, black, and red. Tantra, Shakta and Shiva. The modern-day understanding of Tantra revolves mainly around sexual practices. Yet Tantra is not what you do, but how you do it. Tantra is comprised of dualistic forces working in unison called Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the unmanifest pool, and Shakti is the creative causative that both together bring about that which is manifested. Before there were even genitals to have sexual relations as we know them, there was Tantra. Tantra consists of sounds or vibrations that create, the power of creation. Tantra is a very complex subject spanning centuries of practice. The most common is yoga, in which mantras are chanted and mudras are physically demonstrated to attain the rising of prana or chi or kundalini. These are various life forces that unfortunately have religious connotations today, yet all things we do contain them. We get lost in labels when trying to understand these things. We also have a bad habit of seeing it in limited terms. Tantra naturally arises with activity, and it also descends, moving up and down through the chakra system. Expressions of creativity are ripe in Tantra, and while initiations are required in most instances in India for tantric practices, it may be more of a safeguard into those mysteries than anything. Some tantric practices are questionable when it comes to sexual taboos. This leads to even more negative perceptions to Tantra, especially amongst the conservative West. Sex magic is littered with references to Tantra, but many are surprised to learn performing music, singing, painting a picture, and even dancing is an expression of Tantra. As I said, it is how it is done. Spirals, waves, rising and falling, emotional, passionate, and inspiring. Its purpose is not so much concentrated on the ends, but rather how it leaves the observer feeling and thinking. In all my years of discussing tantric practices with people, it is very rare you find anyone who can agree outside of their dogma or circle. But it is Tantra that created the universe. As a Western individual will say, no, it is God who created it. They miss the point. The Western holy books say it was by the word God created all things. In the East, the word is the all. Across the confines of culture and language, we are talking a synchronicity of terms here. You may also notice quickly how Tantra is the essence we just talked about in alchemy, that rising and falling to create a new creation. This spirit is found within pure love and comes from Source, and it is by love are all things created. It is only our judgment that clouds our vision, but Tantra lies within every one of us. Twin souls, twin flames. All that I've been writing has been the groundwork for the topic of twin flames. While no one knows exactly where the concept came from, most modern-day sources will quote Plato's The Symposium from the 300s BC. The concept goes back further when one explores Kabbalah or peers into Genesis, the stories from Egypt, Tantra, all the topics I have touched upon. If you have understood and allowed your mind's eye to open on this, you see there is like a chi or ether that rises and falls within a being, like a fluid or gas. It only takes one spark to ignite it, and the being is alive, and what people call today awakened. But let's just go over the basic of what most moderns call a twin soul or twin flame. In the beginning there was one soul, the oversoul, monad, all, Sophia, source, and on the name goes. This soul decided to separate itself in expression, and like the stars in the sky became many forms of itself, reflecting the central sun. Then it further divided each of these points of light into pairs, like binary stars. How and when this division happened is not clearly known, except the theme of actual matter or flesh is often involved. A falling into density, and Adam and Eve are the prime examples of this. In the start, there were considered a single pair in one, androgynous, like our Hermetic Child from alchemy's The Philosopher's Stone. Once humans became flesh, these souls were put into them to animate them with life, personality, traits that separated them from the animal world, making them unique, thus further spreading the oversoul's diversity. These pairs proved to be too advanced for the environment they were placed into, and a reconfiguration needed to be performed. You could call this a banishment or a mass extinction event. It matters not. But the twins could no longer be free to marry and meet as before, so they became scattered. With this, abilities were taken, and they were made to live under the same rules as the animals. Noah's Ark can be interpreted as an esoteric lesson along this line. From time to time, though, the Almighty allowed pairs to come together in ways that changed the course of history, and made an exception to the animalistic evolution that caused mankind to transcend and advance their understanding of the divine. Every religion has examples of these two, from Shiva and Shakti to Isis and Osiris. They are pairs. Even the Mayan creation story has the hero twins, who bring the light out of the darkness for mankind, having visited the first father in the underworld who was hung on a tree. All of these stories have these two bringing the divine to the humans, whom they lived around, changing the perspective and course of the society to such an extent we can see why everyone uniting with their twin may not be the best for the current infrastructure of this world, or should I say, too much. Just as when the two binary stars do begin to meet, they warp time and space as they commence to wander into each other, law of attraction, until they collide and a supernova occurs, disrupting all around them, yet also giving the very seeds of life to new stars in a nebula. Do these two stars then cease to exist? Of course not. They are reborn within the new stars they gave rise to, and there will then be more binary systems that do this very same thing, tri-star systems as well. There are also many different philosophies about twin flame rules. I tend to only observe, and who am I to say what is a universal axiom when there is so much diversity? Some people believe you only meet your twin once. Some believe you meet your twin in every incarnation. Some believe you meet them in times of need, and some believe all twins will meet at the end of this very aeon or age to bring about major change. There is one thing they all do have in common, and that is karma. One of the main reasons why twins do meet is to clear past karma, either from before the reconfiguration when damage was done in their pairing, or from repeated matches in all the past lives. This must be rectified, or the aeon will not end, or it will recycle them to the beginning. As I stated, many different views on this, and I cannot say one is right and all the others wrong, but most likely they are all correct in their perspective of each individual. The synchronicities around this couple are impossible not to notice. Their lives, their past, their birth dates, their names in each other's minds, but most of all, the meeting. They just know each other at a level that goes deeper than their own parents or children. Nothing can even compare to it. One look into the eyes and the world stops. Everything stops. You have gazed into the eyes of the one. They have potential to change, as I stated earlier, all around them. John Kennedy and Jacqueline Onassis, Prince Charles and Diana, Johnny Cash and June Carter. Just a few examples of twin flames we have seen in more recent times. There are countless others, but there is a mystique and a very deep feeling anyone will get when watching or observing the two that causes them to question their own attitudes and beliefs. It is not too difficult to see how this can be a threat, and that supernova I spoke of can occur naturally or by mankind's own endeavor to stop it that divinity grants. Too much, too fast. Thus, it is not too hard to see why the belief in many cultures from the Native Americans to ancient Middle East has stories that in the end of this age, all twins will meet and change this world into a new dimension. Now, while I said there are no real rules to all this, there are some patterns to be gone over here that all twin flame relationships go through. Without these, most people today will not consider it a true twin flame meeting. Like alchemy, the number of these stages vary among beliefs, but they are all following the same pattern. Many will narrow it down to just 7 or 8 stages, beginning with the awareness you know who your twin is deep down in your soul before your eyes behold them. But for this purpose, I'm going to include the more inclusive stages that begin from early childhood. 1. Someone is out there. There can be only one. 2. The search in relationships leading to failure. 3. The dark night of the soul from part 1 of this book. 4. The awakening into personal spirituality, the shift. 5. Attraction of your twin flame. 6. Meeting your twin flame with an overwhelming love beyond words. 7. Honeymoon phase. 8. Turmoil phase. 9. Running and chasing phase. 10. Separation phase. 11. Reunion or sacred union of twin flames. Some of these phases can be condensed, and often are if you research this topic, but know this: there is absolutely nothing you can do to make this happen nor avoid it. If you have incarnated for a twin flame union, you signed a soul contract for that purpose, and it will happen. If not, it will not. In theory, we all have a twin flame, but this lifetime may not be the one where you come into sacred union. Some claim to have only seen their twin one time in their life to assist them through a rough time. Why this belief also goes along with the guardian angel as well. Before going into detail about these stages, I want to make it clear that a twin soul and a soulmate are not the same thing. Also, if you believe this doctrine is complete hogwash, bear with me until the end, or you can skip ahead to the Twin Within chapter later on. However, I do urge you to continue, because it is exactly what everything will lead into. I also get into that in the fourth stage of awakening. Yet, let's take a brief look at differences between a soulmate and a twin soul. Soulmates versus twin flames. I have just went over briefly what a twin flame is. Now let's look at the topic often confused with it, and that is a soulmate. I will use the previous example of stars as well here. Without turning this into a full-blown astronomy lesson, let's just say we know stars are classed in their own traits together in what is called a spectral classification. These are buried in exact terms, but all of them look at the star's size, temperature, luminosity, and color. The modern most often used is the Morgan-Keenan system, which has 7 classifications. There are others as well, and from our perspective here, we can use a star's vibration as a way of illustrating it. How fast a star is spinning gives it a tone or frequency, and of course there would be a limit here, from a star barely spinning to a star spinning on the verge of breaking apart. These groups make up systems that are well known, and while a star may be on the other side of the universe, it can share the same class as a star, say, right next to us. These would be in the same family of stars. You may hear someone say, that is a Sirian-type star, or that is an Antares class of stars. Some theorize this tells you the age of a star as well, and it does in astronomy. Newer light blue stars are obviously newer than red giants, who are on the verge of a supernova, having swelled in size over many aeons. These vibrations are like a scale in music, ranging from high to low, and it is said souls are like this as well. Only there is usually a negative connotation put upon souls who are said to be of a low vibration. Exactly why is more of ego in my opinion, which is my own ego obviously, but you cannot really resonate outside of your current potential. Or as we saw in part 1 of this book, you would destroy yourself. So these people that vibe together are in the same class of stars or souls. Thus they are soulmates. You have many soulmates, and your best friends are usually soulmates. You share similar interests and traits, and let's face it, we are limited in them in this dimension, as we are bound by the laws of conventional physics here, and the metaphysics, while infinite, can only be expressed in so many ways in the third dimension. If you pull fifth dimensional thought out onto a table here, it would not even make any sense whatsoever, because you are using the third dimension of the table to display it. It would not work. They would not be soulmates in their complement. Soulmates complement one another and make up for most all marriages and arrangements, but they are not all twin flames. Let us look at those stages a little deeper of twin flames. Twin flames, they are out there. Stage 1. Some are born with an innate sense that some physical body out there is also within them. They may feel a sense of incompleteness, or there is something else, a task they must perform that they cannot do alone. They may be naturally drawn to romantic stories, or feel a deep sense of awe at two lovers. They may even draw inspiration from their own parents or grandparents. The idea of just having someone to hold at night or spend their days with every day is heaven to them. The hectic rush they watch around them as a child seems foreign to them. Society and its norms, all way too complicated. A simple, quiet life suits them deep inside. They may feel like they were born at the wrong time and long deeply for a time when the world was simpler, and have a fantasy that there was a time all couples stayed together until they died in each other's arms. The thought of more than one husband or wife may not suit them at all, monogamy being the only solution in life for them. Even in stories of old, where multiple spouses were the norm, the top alpha is their favorite. The one that holds the heart of the king or queen appeals to them the most. They may have dreams of someone whose face they cannot see. At times they may feel deep emotion and not know where it comes from. This can be especially true even if they are not that empathetic in nature. Surprised they feel so much for no apparent reason. A feeling that is drawing them and causing them to become restless is often at their core, as if there is some unfinished business to be about. No matter the material status of their life, want or lack of it, they have an unsatisfied feeling deep down that they have no words for. They are very aware of pairs, or have a grasp at duality, and might express that at a young age in art or some creative outlet, always with an incessant yearning inside to gratify that urge, to find that something they feel belongs inside their core being. They may at a very young age understand and grasp spiritual concepts, reaching out to God or angels with visions and dreams very detailed of other realms or ideas. Fantasy is a favorite of theirs, and make-believe as well. Oftentimes, they have a sense of the stars and a home they have lost or are apart from. They are most certainly rejected and often end up with a feeling of deep loneliness, even if they are very popular. Depression at a very young age is common along with migraines and nervous disorders. They are best suited by themselves, which may seem somewhat of a paradox as they are aware of some divine mate, but the road to that meeting is usually a long and tough one. Being with anyone but the one just does not give the deep gratification they are longing for. Remember, we are all here for a purpose, and despite there being numerous singleness of purpose statements, life is more complex than that. Not all stars were born to be red giants or crash into another star, so not all souls on this earth have the exact same mission. Free will, it can be said, is nothing but an illusion. You have what appears to be choices in life, but your choices are limited to your perspective and understanding of the path you are on. I have a drawer full of shirts to choose from, and I can choose which shirt I will wear today. But, in all wisdom, do I truly have a choice in that? My choices are actually limited by the shirts I have. I can go out and buy a new one, but variables then factor in that are greater than my ability to walk over and open the drawer and to put on a shirt. I could also order one online to have it delivered, which draws in even more variables than just going to a shop to buy one. Factors of codependency increase the more complex I get in my journey to increase my choices. At some point, I have to begin to put faith in it, and my free will gets exposed to not being so free after all, let alone my will. I have to rely on the coordination of others and their wills also. Truth is, if I am meant to have another choice, it will happen. If not, all my vain power will not have it so when I want it. This illustration of choices in wardrobes is humorous, but when it comes to a life path, we agree on that when we come here. Not everyone came here to be President of the United States or the first person to fly an airplane. Those who did, have, and could not be stopped, as it was a divine appointment. Twin flames are no different, and all the powers in the universe cannot derail you, nor would they, for they sent you and are always working on your behalf to fulfill your purpose here. Any type of change through self-will would only be temporary. While one could argue they could jump off a cliff, I can answer, see you in the next incarnation, and then the universe knew all about that deviation, as it was obvious your life path was laid out. The twin flame will meet their twin when they are meant to, and it will happen, and the sacred union will come about. This is that longing that they have deep within from the very start. Twin flames, the search, stage 2. Our determined flame so begins their quest to find the one and embarks on a career of relationships. This is not necessarily the type of relationships society may deem as serious. They can even appear superficial to the world, but to the twin flame, they are very deep because they are unknowingly coming from a place in their very heart reserved for that special someone. They are substituting in a very selfish way and putting others in an unfair situation of having to live up to impossible expectations, be my twin, even when they have no idea that is what they are doing. It is not too hard to see this leads to horrible brokenheartedness for everyone, not to mention karma. Each time our twin believes they have found the one, and for good reason. Within each of the relationships, there is a theme our twin may not be aware of for quite some time. There are strange synchronicities beyond comprehension, things the person just would not know about their newfound love, as if something was guiding them down this path. Their present love has the same first name as the middle name of their last, which they never even bothered to learn. A parent may have the same job as their own parent. They may have a sister or brother that shares characteristics with their own that they learn about later. The list is endless here, but the result's always the same. It does not work out, and the blow is crushing. Sometimes they may even give up and just take a relationship out of necessity for physical needs. The person they are with usually falls deeply in love with them. They seem to have a knack for showing romantic abilities along with a mystique of spirituality that gives them an alluring aura. They always have some form of talent for creative arts, be it writing, poetry, painting, musical abilities, or any of the classic romantic era's traits of moonlit voyages on a sea of bliss. In youth, they have the energy and magnetism to attract and always do with passionate results, often enough, but again, it always leads to one thing. They are still not fulfilled, and the relationship no longer fills that place they so desperately need filled. They may seek help in counseling, religion, addictions, more relationships, only increasing the spiral downward, overachieving in every area of life they are involved with to compensate for the hole inside they feel. They may become convinced they are not whole or complete. Psychological problems may begin to manifest, with possible drugs or alcohol or other addictive behaviors solidifying in their life. This leads to yet more broken hearts and more busted friendships and relationships. Over time, they might begin to pick up on a pattern or have it pointed out to them by someone more aware or wiser, possibly even another twin flame who already knows what is going on. You really cannot point out too much to a twin, as you recall. They have signed a soul contract for a certain path before them. It does not do any good either, other than plant a seed for another day in them. But they may begin to learn deeper traits about what they want in a mate and things about their failures, as they are becoming quite used to pain and have a sincere desire for it to end. The problem is, each person they date or have a deeper relationship with, they say, this time for sure. They may become a relationship addict, or they very well could be in one casual relationship, living a total lie to their loved one, committed for life, so they say, but deep down they know this is not true. At some point, all this karma and guilt catches up, and they may lose their own identity and slip into a place from which there is no human help anymore. They have reached the jumping off point, and they throw in the towel. Any number of circumstances can lead them to this place, but it's always the same place. Isolated, alone, all bridges burnt, and no one to face but themselves, and the damage they have done to so many hearts, or so they think. Not yet do they see, not only did they sign up for this, but so did all the people they encountered in one cosmic dance, each with their own purpose. Twin Flames, Dark Night of the Soul, Stage 3. I went into the topic of Dark Night of the Soul in the first part of this book 5 years ago, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Suffice it to say, this is not something anyone looks forward to. Here the twin may reach out to rekindle an old flame. They may find the door closed. It could be open. Either way, it ends the same. It is of no help. It is within this stage our twin begins to truly see something beyond human capability is steering their life. They may feel absolutely lost and accursed with no help at all in sight. Time may seem to stand still as they are locked in their own prison. Just as in alchemy, they are stripped of everything. Their whole life is reviewed in front of their own eyes. Of the mind, and tears flow like the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. This is a result of all that karma, of the list of broken hearts and self-abasement they have put themselves through in the attempts to cope in the previous years. Time, and only the highest, can decide how long this will be. Nothing can help but that and deep introspection. Every dark corner is exposed, and only light that shines upon those aspects of the twin they hope not to see. After a long ordeal, they eventually surrender and accept the futility of their effort. Suicide may be a constant thought, but no motivation to perform the act, knowing deep down it will not help either. Completely unmasked and exhausted, they just give up and let the darkness take them. Little do they know, the sun is about to rise. Twin Flames, The Awakening, Stage 4. The whole scope of this text has been aimed at this right here, this stage, this place. This is what it's all about. This is the heart of everything. Our dejected twin, who has been cast off and rejected from all and left to deal with their own sorrow in a place no one can help them, eventually comes to realize the most profound truth of all. That which they have been seeking was to fill that place inside them, and it is inside them that they end up looking too. It is there that they find what they are seeking all along, outside themselves and others. The help they get is beyond human aid. From the divine comes the relief. That fluid I spoke of, that flammable ether, ignites with a spark from on high, and the once pitch-black night erupts in a dawn of blazing fire, and our twin flame is forever changed. If the dark night of the soul was proper, they have lost so much as it is. The change may sever what is left, as the twin now appears to speak in bizarre language and even their appearance is different. This may come quickly or gradually, but the twin will stumble upon something that opens this door, be it a song, a book, a movie, a conversation with a passing stranger, or just watching the sunrise. That spark comes, and like a cool drink of water they did not know they needed, they realize a part of themselves can guide them back to the light. All that they had done has an opposite side within them, and balance and sanity are once again glimpsed in hope. I will get more into this in the chapter The Twin Within, but the result is as if they were raised from the dead or born again and shown their true heart. Twin Flames, Attraction, Stage 5. With this newfound change overcoming our twin, they of course have a completely lifestyle change. This leads them onto other roads, possibly hinted at by those so many before who tried to counsel them and offer them assistance in life. Those seeds I mentioned earlier finally sprout at the right time, giving the twins something new to focus on. Meditation, yoga, exercise, art, dance, the list is endless, but the principle the same. The twin begins to encounter a different vibration of people because their vibration has changed. As stated in the last stage, their whole aura has changed and they are different. No longer seeking someone to fulfill them, they have found within themselves this thing, and like-minded beings cross their path. The old crowd may still linger here in their life, but they are like a boat on a lake with a small hole in the bow. It is just a matter of time before they are gone into obscurity, because vibrations match the soulmates. Soulmates can and do change, another difference from a twin flame, and this is how we arise and fall in the musical scale of the stars and within alchemy as we branch out. Terms like high and low lose meaning, labels of ego, and the twin learns there is something much more than ego, as they saw theirs completely smashed before them. This is a stage where service to humanity now takes the place of all the selfishness of the past. Community outreach may occur, clubs, causes, amends to family, and those old bridges they burned may be repaired. Only this time, not in search of anything at all, but just goodwill and peace, always firmly fixed on the lesson they had just learned. All is within them. That hole inside they had felt all their lives was just an illusion. Their heart had not yet had the eyes to see who they really are. In this period, they will no doubt meet potential mates. They may not have time for them, but they will meet them. It may be casual friends, online, someone at a place they frequent, but they will begin to draw towards them that which they came here to do. They probably have given up dating altogether and enjoy nothing more than their new freedom and happiness, the bliss of themselves. Remember, though, nothing can stop nor rush their life contract. Being whole themselves, they now stand ready to come face to face with why they came in the first place. Twin Flames, Behold Your Twin, Stage 6. It is in the eyes that is the gateway to the soul. Their eyes will meet and time will literally stand still, like a veil opens and surrounds them. They will match in a feeling so deep, love utterly fails to name it. It has no name. It is beyond the time of names and words humans speak. It is ancient, forged at the time of the stars as they were forged together. This meeting is like no other. They may feel totally inadequate, but overlooked at by the sheer magnitude of the other's gaze and countenance. Awestruck, frozen, a feeling like a little child overcomes them. There is nothing like it, and the long, hard struggle to get here may overwhelm them in deep emotion. It is as if they are the only two people in the whole world. The saying, love at first sight, comes from this. Every sense is awake and aware, and there may be heightened sense of adrenaline. People will often make hard and fast rules here that really seem like extras, like you will feel only peace, or you will have no fear, or your heart will beat from your chest. Honestly, I've listened to many stories about this, and the only one thing I've heard is true. You will know when your eyes meet, unlike anyone you have ever looked upon. A feeling that you will never forget. Love at first sight that rockets you into another dimension in an instant, because it is mutual, cannot be helped in any manner. You will remember how they smelled, tasted, felt, and sounded. It will imprint into your mind as if they were already imprinted on your DNA. They are, in fact, in your soul's DNA, so this is valid. It will be as if you made the person up in your own mind and could be tempted to think you made this happen somehow by your previous stage of enlightenment and awakening. You manifested them. This will be gotten back to later. You will feel a sense of great accomplishment and achievement here, and you will feel like you have come home. You have never met anyone like this before, nor will you again. You will know this is your twin flame. If their eyes do not speak enough to you for your proof, their voice will do the rest. The sound of it will resonate to your very soul and be the most soothing sound you have ever heard. You will know their eyes and voice. Twin Flames, the Honeymoon, Stage 7. After meeting your twin flame face to face, a period will begin called the Honeymoon Phase. How long this period lasts is anyone's guess. You are in perfect bliss, seventh heaven, all the catchphrases you hear in the spiritual community as you spend time with your twin. You can sit with them for hours and feel perfectly at peace, talking or in silence. As you gather details about their life, you begin to see all the past relationships were leading you up to this moment. Everything was exactly as it was supposed to be, or you would not be at that moment. One that makes a lifetime of pain not only worth it, but willing to travel that path again, just to get to this moment. You may embrace them under the stars or moon and feel a connection like home. Holding them in your arms and feeling their touch is beyond words. You could sit and watch the grass grow all day with them and be perfectly happy. Your interests and theirs are in line as if the stars put you both together. This is that feeling you have been looking for your whole life, and the warmth of their presence is so overwhelming it brings you to tears. Long ago in the Indus Valley, it is said that at the very beginning of this age, or yuga, beings would take new couples to the moon where a ceremony would take place. This was a very special ceremony that consecrated the new couple in front of the all. Then the female was given a special energy to conceive a child. Sex was not yet like it is today. This sacred trinity of husband, mother, and child was carried out. Then the couple brought back in celebration where they would live out their days in joy and bliss. It was considered quite an honor, and this blessing upon them is where we get the phrase honeymoon from, and relates to Tantra, known as white Tantra, or no sexual seed is used, just love. Another version has it where the couple were taken to the moon one day a year to consummate their union. The source of this story I have sadly long lost, but you may run across reference to it. It is considered a mere legend with no basis in fact in the Golden Age when the quote gods and quote goddesses mingled in the affairs of mankind face to face, when the golden ether was in all things and the world was in perfect harmony. During this phase, you may start to see you have abilities with a person you have never experienced with anyone. All those fantasy-like traits you imagine begin to take hold. Your presence could heal them, or you could finish their sentences, or even be able to read their thoughts. Sexual union may occur here that is like no other you've ever encountered, and a love connection that does not need physical displays, but when given, the kiss is like home. You learn and adapt with them so well, you begin to gauge them in all things, as I stated before, as if you created them yourself. We are all humans here. No matter how advanced or learned in anything, we have a brain, a past, and an ego that propels us forward for our own physical survival. We have learned how to manage and survive in such a harsh and beautiful world. We know this person at such a deep level, we can begin to see their survival skills as well. Do not be fooled by anyone. Our egos are not at all perfect, and our twin has flaws like anyone else. Life is a non-stop learning process in which new things are being added to the mix. This alchemy goes on until we reach that grave destined for us as all. As much as you are in bliss with your twin, in time, you will begin to see their trace of survival as well, and they will trigger within you past traumas. They are all part of the long thread of the story running through this, and it is for you to see you are not at all perfect, and this perfect match to you still falls under the laws by which all material abides. You begin to see your twin as human. Thus begins another type of dark night of the soul, from which all twin relationships go through, one of the hardest times of all. Twin Flames, Crisis, Stage 8. So your twin flame is not the literal package of perfection your fantasy had envisioned all your life. They have physical needs. They have to eat and use the bathroom just like anyone else. They get tired, they get moody, they get down, and your presence is not going to be able to keep that at bay for long. They still have scars, and this union has touched on so many. Doubt begins to creep in, possibly in both minds of the twins. A here we go feeling of just another letdown, like all the so many letdowns that came before. The one we have been spending such a blissful time with in the period after meeting surely has the answers, right? We may begin to question them or try and poke into what is going on. This is probably not going to have a lasting effect of solace. You are supposed to just know, right? All the inner communication that has been going on suddenly seems to vanish and expectations begin to arise. It may be easy to read someone in perfect stillness and calmness, whether it be their actions, their energy, their words, and even their mind. It is quite a different matter when stress and fear come in. Stress and fear do come in, no matter what any twin flame expert wants to tell you. Recall that cognitive dissonance I touched upon in part 1 of this book. Anyone who is living in such great denial that thinks their twin flame is not going to challenge them as well as all the others have done is most likely not ready. Your own past pain, while soothed by your twin flame at first meeting, is still in the recesses of your own mind and ego. And all the path leading up to this meeting has had a thread in it. So the present is going to include that. Your pain is not gone and buried, but rather the bliss of that honeymoon eclipsed it. Like all eclipses, time marches on, and the underlying thing is exposed. Are you really sure this person is the one? Now, what was bliss becomes irritation. The person who was so open now puts up a defense, a wall we have seen before, and it may remind us of our own. This elicits a response, and is in turn answered with a reciprocating wall. The mind begins to play tricks on the twins, and what was so perfect begins to be questioned as maybe being too perfect. The slow background music of all the arguments of the past relationships begins to play, getting louder and louder. Love is mixed with concern and fear, and that sparkle in their eye begins to fade as doubt creeps in. This horror settles in, and one of the twins sees this as just another relationship. Twin flames run and chase, stage 9. After a stage of turmoil, when the honeymoon is over, one of the twins, usually the female, directs all that past fear and trauma at their twin and just disappears. They run away. They are the runner. All the emotion has been too intense, and the physical body even begins to break down from the crisis that has occurred. As all that love that was misplaced throughout life is directed so strongly at the twin, so too is the pain. In a flash, the twin is gone, in protection of their own heart, body, and mind, which has taken so long to get right for them. Now this relationship threatens all that progress, and they abandon their twin. All the promises of steadfast love and devotion are put in with the fantasies of yesterday. But fear not, as I stated, this contract is just beginning to be ratified. The one left is devastated, as it becomes just like all the others. A sense of deep panic and fear grips them in a horrible loss. Their deepest love has been snatched from them, ripped from them, by that very love. The wound is like no other, and they are completely shattered inside. Questions flood their mind, and no hope of any answers, and they are left wondering what they did so wrong to their deepest love. Immediately a sense of urgency to search begins, to find answers, to find relief, to find their twin. This person is called the chaser. This running and chasing does not necessarily have to be physical either. The runner could slip into an addiction from the past, blaming, of course, the chaser, who went from being the greatest thing in the universe to the epitome of all that is evil. The chaser, too, may drown their sorrows with an addiction, in attempting to find the answers as to what is wrong with them, or make the other pay for their crimes against them. Clearly, the ego has resurfaced here, as stated before. Perfection is merely a perspective. Our twin turns out to be human after all, just like us, and this revelation alone can be mind-numbing. Guilt and shame can pour in at this exposure, topped off with the way the twins are coping with the loss through possible various vices and ways they had long thought overcome, not to mention the deeper psychological blame and guilt that is occurring as they let the love of their life down to such a degree that there was eventual rejection. While many people have endless amounts of advice at this stage for both of these twin types, runner or chaser, upon closer inspection we find all too often what the twin is looking for is immediate reconciliation. They just want their twin flame back, especially the chaser. So any advice given with pure intent is being filtered through eyes that are fixed on only one thing, relief of the pain. While the runner is often told to isolate and heal, further encouraging egoic protection as well, as exposure to the twin they are running from brings pain. This all may sound like a paradox in a slave versus master scenario, and that is why some advice may just very well be for naught. There are clearly sick relationships that any twin has been involved in that can fit this same pattern, which is why, if you have gotten this far, as most everyone has, you are not truly considered an actual twin flame union at all. But that is not to say you have not actually met your twin. It is just not time yet, and it may not be even in this lifetime you will reach sacred union with them. With all that said, be it known, this is where so many twin flame relationships end in this life. A runner may run for years. They can run into the arms of another for protection. A chaser may chase all the way into complete social disrepair and utter loss. Romeo and Juliet, although a fictional situation in name, are not at all fictional in life. And let us be honest, what is real? The story reflects the story of many lives over the ages, and abandoned lovers have jumped off a cliff since time immemorial. No one can really tell you for sure if that person was or was not your twin flame due to the results. Only you can say, and you knew when you first met their eyes. As I stated, advice on this stage is endless here. Just keep in mind that there are personalities of your past still lurking in lessons, and there are people who will feed off your vulnerability, be it for money, their own pride and ego, or just plain control. Society, oddly enough, seems almost geared for this stage, as it fits in with basic rights and protections given everyone. The twin has already established themselves in their spiritual center, as we saw much earlier in this, so they will most likely return to it as a means of coping with such loss. The runner and chaser are both in equal pain here. No matter how much the escape into logic or fantasy can be mustered, the heart and soul know. This is a time of testing as well. How serious is the twin for union? Are they truly done with the past? Are they truly ready for what it is that they have been searching for all their lives? Only time will tell. Twin flames, separation, stage 10. In the meantime, the twin must go within. They have been here before, many times in this whole cycle. We know from alchemy that separation was when the expired masculine and feminine traits were no longer needed. We discarded them, and the pure energies of both were inspected. This is why I went into such detail about alchemy, because that is exactly what is happening here with our separated twin flames. The universe is expecting them both. Eventually, the running and chasing becomes exhausted, and the twins begin to accept their fates, if they make it through that stage. Like the dark night of the soul, they surrender and begin the shadow work. What happened? What parts of them are still not correct? Where did that state of total bliss within themselves go to from before they met their twin and felt such devastating loss? Was their whole progress in their spirituality tainted with an expectation that they would meet their twin? So many factors to be inspected, but all of them will reveal the true light within. It matters not to a separated twin if they had ulterior motives or maybe jumped the gun. It is beyond such egoic guilt, but rather truly within, what are they made of? This is the case if they truly surrender and admit that they were not ready. All twin flames must also go through this time. It may be thought that it has already been gone through, but it has not. There have been great loves in life that have been dashed, a period of horrible grief, followed by silence and healing, and to emerge as glorious light. But this is different, because the twin actually met their twin. All others were mere echoes leading up to that meeting. That may sound somewhat harsh and non-caring, as if each person in the past was a mere stepping stone, but remember, all those others were also going on a path of their own life they signed up for. We are not to judge their journey. This is not a narcissistic means to an end at all, but rather a deeper understanding of the modad that was touched on earlier, the one soul from which we are all reflections. It is not up to us to decide the wheres and whys, only to move forward realizing those answers really do not help our individual paths we must walk in this life. Knowledge for knowledge's sake does not lead to freedom, and a case of bondage could be made. This is the time for that phrase we have used before, I do not know. In this time of separation, the twin will have to muster up those energies that got them to the point of the meeting. It is strange how a long, hard road of spirituality can be seemingly taken so fast when we meet a twin and they are gone in the runner-chaser stage. That is a twin in that honeymoon stage and crisis stage can actually be a very short time. Time is irrelevant for any soul, but especially a twin flame meeting. Remember, time stands still, so that twin may not be able to find what was so easily available from before their meeting. This can be especially true of the chaser. While the runner sees self-preservation from the start, the chaser too must reach that point or walk over the cliff they have been thinking so much about. What keeps them going is a deep knowing that there is a reunion somewhere, just not today. So both must go within and reconnect their minds with Source and heal their broken hearts. Meditation, music, dance, art, all the things in their awakening and attractant stage may help. Only this time, it is for a much deeper reason. A twin flame meeting is at the deepest level of the human soul one can have. Therefore, the healing and reconnecting must be like no time ever for the twin. It will also be the most honest, as twin flame meetings make us the most vulnerable, and the separation stage the most cutting. The light that was within, that spark that ignited the flame, will ignite again, only this time burning the deepest recesses of dross away that no longer serves the union, or the twin will refuse and go about in solitude for the rest of their days. But this was their life path, and while it may be put off in this one, it will come back again in the next. Like the twin who walks off the cliff, they must be putting it off, but guaranteed is the time when it must be faced. It is better to face it sooner rather than later, as is shown in the alchemical portion of this talk. The most important thing to remember is there are no mistakes, and all is working towards your highest good to bring about your sacred union. Embrace it. You are the light. Twin Flames, Sacred Union, Stage 11. This is that elusive stage that is never promised in this lifetime, and the one that is the holy grail of all. I will give my honest opinion with full knowledge I am wrong quite a lot, that this is what lies within each and every person alive, yet it is the rarest of all things. Logic says it cannot happen, and would even appear it defies fate itself, that two people who could have went through all we have gone over could ever meet again on a higher plane. But that is why love is the most encompassing of all things in the universe and the foundation upon all things. The universe, no doubt, loves a love story deeper than we do. This is in fact a miracle of miracles, especially in today's age. Twin flames will very rarely ever get to this stage because settling for what is in front of us has gotten easier. Many will settle down with a soulmate and just live out their days rather than face the deepest, darkest parts of themselves and be willing to let it all go for sacred union. We are imperfect in our egos and flesh, and there is a force at work in the world that does, in fact, not want this union to take place. This union is the first and the last. We can have this within us and live out our days in bliss, but to manifest this into the third dimension with another who has done the same changes this dimension. It changes others within this dimension. Be it God, angels, your higher self, the monad, or Sophia, a power much greater than your own is guiding this union together, and nothing can stop it, as long as the twin has truly gone through all the other stages and come out shining. It may not be in this lifetime either, as I have stated numerous times, but it will happen. For reason unbeknownst to us, it has not happened, or it has. This is one area no spell, no chant, no meditation can make happen. Many things can prepare you along the way for this, but when taken into account all the other factors, the crisis, the separation, the running, the chasing, the surrender, it is not hard to see how impossible a union like this can occur. This is the ultimate walk the talk meeting, and what is considered the true flame meeting. Exactly why and for what purpose this meeting takes place is a myriad of reasons, but I will go over a few that I am aware of. For one, to change the world is why they meet. This is true evidence of a miracle. When someone has a loved one on a hospital bed and all hope is lost, diagnosis terminal, and death imminent, what proof is there of any type of divine mercy? Where is the mother of relief at? Well, two people who went through all this actually met in the most humblest and purest refinement of love to find all logical chance of reconciliation. Not only that, but they changed all others around them as well, making them think and feel deeper and more sincere, causing their egos to deflate and see there as a God, however that is defined in limiting words. Deeper meanings, deeper things. This example of love is seen on levels of the seen and unseen and amplifies what this world universe is all about. Mercy and forgiveness, which is what the absolute is, the philosopher's stone, that substance from which is made that which is pure and considered holy, a spirit that transcends this harsh world and transmute it into beauty. Another belief of twin flames is that they are in the last incarnation. They have played house, dabbled with love, crossed paths time and time again, but have never been fully ready. Each lifetime brings them closer until finally, in one lifetime, the universe grants this last stage. The two will never part again. They will die together, or in some beliefs, actually be taken into the sky. This belief may at first sound like a newer Christian invention, but buried deep in antiquity are these same stories. It may have been one of the purposes of the Great Pyramid, and is common among Native American teachings. It is also in Vedic texts, as these so-called gods and goddesses lived among mankind and taught them higher ways at the start of this age, then simply vanished into the clouds one day. Bringing us to a final point about sacred union. Of course this age runs out of time, as all ages do, and change must come. Cause and effect being one and the same. It is said that at the end of this age, the doors of mercy will open, and all twin flames will unite to bring about the catalyst. This age of Aquarius we have heard so much about, built on the foundation of the purest love, led by the example of that love. This world will transmute into a deeper and more meaningful place through the example of this love. Regardless of anyone's religious teachings or beliefs, this is the example in Christ we are given. This world does not cater to a non-twin flame union. It is easy. It reinforces the ego and keeps people in the dark without any hope. No miracles to look at and say, that, I am that. Sex is meaningless at times. No real sacred intent, just pleasure. No real bonding, no real soul. But when two people lay that down for a much higher purpose for love, this is an example of what Christ actually taught. What is at the heart of all religion in this world? Love one another. While that task seems impossible for all, to love your twin flame is one task that you can get to if you allow it. You must die to yourself, as we saw in alchemy. This life is going to kill you as it is, so why not find joy and love in a union that surpasses the understanding of this life? One last point I will bring up on sacred union. There is also a belief that when two fully developed twin flames come together, it is for the purpose of bringing into this world more advanced souls that are waiting to come here. The twins are a gateway into a higher dimension. And while they are bringing that vibration in this world through their union to those around them, they also have the capability to bring their own children into this world, endued with the qualities that give them, say, a jump start into life, for helping to bring light into this world. This is the basis of much of the alchemical teachings in the Middle Ages, and one can learn more about this by studying Rosicrucian texts. Of course, the Gnostic texts as well, concerning Christ and Magdalene, and all that goes with that. The twin within. Throughout all ages, what do we truly know? Our history has been corrupted. Our languages have been corrupted. Our morals, values, and thoughts are corrupted. We are left with only the truth deep down that is in this world. We do not know for certain. Darkness has covered every corner, so that what we call God is the only light, and we find that in the darkness is perfect beauty. We think we are in control, but no chant, no spell, no meditation ultimately decides an outcome other than mere chance. It is mercy that brings us forth. We overlook the countless examples where our effort did not work, and focus only on one example where it did. This is also beautiful, for in it we are aligned in harmony with the divine who made it so. From that darkness comes all light, and we are in that light and in that dark, and these two things we label as opposites are restricted in their deepest meanings to our limitations of understanding through our corrupted system. This corruption is also perfect, as it assures us of a reliance on that mercy, which is an alignment also of us, conduits of that mercy. We can allow it to work through us or not, but it always does. The process of alchemy is ever at work to bring about this harmony within us, as it is our very soul's fabric to do so. In the beginning, it is believed there was the nameless, that which goes beyond limited scope of words and singular ideas based on time. This all split itself into a pair, and that pair then makes one together, which makes three, the triune face. What has been passed on in our language in terms as mother, father, and child. The child did the same, and made a mate as well, and these two formed a soul, being the reflection of spirit from the highest. This reverberates throughout all things, as the two children also created, and kept on creating, giving form and life. We saw in part 1 of this book, you must have polarity in order to have mass or matter, form, or it will not hold together. Soul is also substance, just not the type our minds and flesh can truly know, as it is usually concerned with solid forms of gender. The masculine and feminine are restricted in meaning to sex organs, and it is in the base nature to stay there through pleasure and pain. The immutable qualities that lie with a more occulted aspect, which is the human soul. Our soul longs for home, that place with the mother and father being resolved to the nameless. This is so inherent, all matter goes through it as it decays and dies. This is the true natural order of things. We can sometimes see death as some cruel force that breaks our hearts and takes from us that which we love. Yet our very love gives witness to this very thing. We long for that which is lost. When it comes to our soul, we are not really lost. It is just our limited minds that perceive this. It is as if it is just left out of the loop of knowledge, but it is just incapable of fully grasping it. It is built that way, for without it, our minds would not survive. It must regulate time within, our heartbeat, our circulation, our emission of hormones and chemicals in order to survive and adapt in this dimension. If it is completely open and aware, humans and animals would not even eat despite the pain. They would not remove their hand from the flame in order to preserve themselves. There is such a powerful force within us and the root of life without which we would not carry on. Mind is an echo of the soul and can be displayed in the matter of this world. Alchemy can be carried out chemically on compounds, and we can watch this in nature. The seemingly opposing dualities are at work and in harmony with a grander design, a blueprint for life and change. That which has been changed goes back into an unseen pool to be used again and again in future reconstructions. So too does the soul have what it seems like opposing qualities that govern the mood and demeanor of the organism, but they also are in harmony to bring that soul back to the source. The biggest difference here is it is not quite as linear as those terms, but rather bringing source to this dimension is also true. So source and dimension are one, as are all dimensions. This one is more muted in its qualities, so it seems, in its harmony with soul. But that is just our mind's perception, because it works off this linear pattern. From hungry, get food, makes pleasure. Within us all, longing for a twin flame or not, are two qualities the mind sees as contradictions, hypocrisies, and conundrums. All these paradoxes of science that make it appear as if we do our wills when it best suits us, and we can only control that by our choices. Choose the door on the left, and the door on the right remains closed. Schrodinger's cat shows us both are undecided until we choose and make our choices. The doors are both open and closed, except in that brief instance when we make a choice. Time does not allow us the privilege of a constant choice in our minds. We have to walk through it or close it. Standing there with it open forever is not an option the mind can sustain itself on. We would eventually fall asleep, and your hand would fall from the knob, and the door would do as it wills. The will is not so powerful after all. There is a greater will, a divine will, where the choices are being governed, and all the choices are being carried out simultaneously at all times. We talked about this will earlier in the very first stage of alchemy, called calcination. This masculine force of fire, which breaks down illogical or unneeded traits within. This logic is not the mind's logic, but rather what does not fit harmoniously with the true soul. What is not soul, but rather ego that opposes the soul. The dragon that has to be tamed and tuned to see itself for what it is. This will overrides that pride and emotion of grandeur that has been characterized as the feminine that is not needed, irrational traits that lead to doubt and self-will. In the second stage of dissolution, we see the true consciousness or soul of the feminine waters come out in possibility, a vision of this divine that all things are possible. This overtakes the masculine sense of control that is no longer needed and limits what can happen. That part of us that records results and sees favor in a certain path that overlooks when that path fails and calls it mere odds or chance. This second stage gives us mercy and inspires us to dream of a new way, to abandon the rigidity of our mind's logic and have faith in the unseen. Once these two traits are truly brought about through trials and failures and tears and sorrows, we begin to emerge from these two within us. We get this by trying to find it outside of ourselves, for it is that not what the mind is constantly doing, looking outside to govern and formulate restrictions. Where do we learn those irrational fears but by recording and memorizing what happened out there? How do we come up with the stats and the numbers within our minds to solidify and prove this to ourselves but by calculating the results from out there? This person does this, and the last time I was with someone who did that, it ended this way. So the future with this path is this way, which is that way that happened before. On it goes. And we see at some point the wisdom of Solomon saying, there is no new thing under the sun. What is one then left to do but go about life in apathy, or maybe open new eyes and ears, and see that this is all a recording in the mind giving way to emotions that actually are not real and not now at all. That is the purpose of these two seemingly opposing forces to our mind's nature we have pushed away. We have not carried out in our mind the whole story, but rather benefited our desires and wants in the now, but not the failures and sorrows, all of those being but labels we assign to a result. The flower that passes and returns to the earth, we often have a hard time seeing as the fertilizer of tomorrow's flower. We just want our flower today in our mind. We do not care for the deep philosophical ideas. So we just go to buy a flower and plant it. Sometimes we find those flowers are not as fragrant from the store as the ones naturally grown in the field, but we overlook it because our mind sees what it wants before it. Deep down we know the futility of seeking out there for that which we think we are lacking. We sometimes run across the proof we are looking for, but in time, which dictates our mind, we forget. The potency of the proof loses its strength, and we must be reminded. This becomes an addiction, and we are stuck in a cycle. This continues, but everyone, no matter who they are, begins to learn one way or another that this is not satisfying. They may never find a way out, but they lose at some point the joy or rush in the cycle. It is within this breakdown, we call it the dark night of the soul, one must look within at the dark recesses. They have been shown repeatedly that the ideas that they have buried and called illogical are actually more logical than the path that they have been circling, spiraling down into an abyss of hopelessness that their own self-will for survival at some point sees as futile. Whatever hole or incompleteness the person has been trying to fill with outside joy can only be obviously filled by something within, or something must come within them to fill it. This seed is the only thing that is needed. This realization is the sanest and clearest truth that they may have had in a very long time. When it comes to twin flames, they must embrace the sides equally, masculine and feminine within, in order to bring about harmony within. This way, nothing in life can cause them lasting disruption, for they have seen the light from within which came from this dark. The world's results are temporal and outside. As much emotion as was invested in it, it will pass inside. In that time of disrepair, they will emerge with tools to get them through this, as we have talked about, those new ways of living they learn in awakening. This is their light, and how it is expressed outwards is an inward change. The perspective changes, and there is nothing out there that is not in there. The two are the same. Conflict and heartbreak are speaking within, and the process must continue. The labeling must end, and what comes embraced fully. Unless one has gone through this process for themselves, seeking a twin flame out there is pointless. You have not yet lit the violet flame from within. How can you bring anything to a twin flame relationship? The only thing you can do is draw from something else, that which can only be gotten from within. You can sit in a soulmate configuration and live out your days as happy as possible, but life is still going to throw problems at you. And if you did sign up for a twin flame union, you're going to have to face this sooner or later. This is what alchemy is doing within us. As we saw in the stages of the distillation and coagulation, The child, or king and queen, emerged from the dead, reborn anew, androgynous and changed forever. This is that realization the twin was always within you, and the quest outside of yourself was a reflection of the lack of understanding inside of this light. In the macrocosm of the all, we are all twins and souls. If you're looking for a physical twin flame union, this realization would suit you to learn. Your true twin flame. Over much study and being involved with the twin flame community along with quite a lot of meditation, I began to see twin flames were heavily associated with incarnations. As I focused more on reincarnation and twin flames, I was aware the standard view of twin flames was to teach each other most of all. I came into this world very different than any of the kids I knew. I seemed to just know things, and if you gave me one grain of truth or hint of something, I could expand on it and figure out complex problems. I was very aware of females and males along with their feelings. Old soul was an expression I heard early in life. Being nearly half Native American, I just figured it had something to do with that and went on with life. Because when it came to social skills and how to fit into the world, I was not very adapted to that. I had to learn things the hard way. But there was no doubt I had connection to information about people and their ways. I could feel people and read their thoughts at times. How did I acquire such knowledge of even the opposite sex? I struggled as a child with this and ended up having to fight quite a bit. I had just a sensitive side to me, but was not at all homosexual or had any feelings like this. I could almost go into a girl's body and feel their soul on an astral plane. I could figure out what my mom was going to say or think, and both of my grandmothers. Much later, grown and having gone through my own awakening, I began to start seeing things in meditation. I would remotely meditate with several people and got involved in Reiki as well. So I had quite a pool of experience to draw from connecting with so many people. I heard from many women on social media, "You are my twin flame," which I would respond to by meditating with them just to see. I had a strong sense of the same female being present. Also, I heard from multiple women there was another woman there they saw. In meditation with women, I saw the same thing. I saw a male watching over us. This happened time and time again. While reading some Eastern philosophies on twin flames and reincarnation, I ran across a very old belief that in the beginning of this age, when twins were separated, it was deemed only one twin was allowed to incarnate at a time until the end of this age. They were to take turns, and the more the incarnations, the more then they would have the ability to relate to the opposite physical sex. This was like a light bulb I had been waiting on all my life to go off. It explained everything. As you incarnate, your twin is watching and learning from you and teaching you as well. They will send you someone at times, and it is in their best interest as well if you continue in your incarnation. The way you treat people reflects on them, and it is how you also are ultimately treating them, or your higher self. This brings a different type of self-respect than what is taught in the world, but rather higher self-respect. The twin is also chastising you as well when you do not live up to what you really are, a divine example of the light. When you are ready, they will send you someone they know you will like because they know everything about you. Not only that, they will send someone who reflects them. Thus, you have found your twin flame. And it will be as if the divine will brought it about, because it did. Your twin knows you better than you know yourself, and vice versa. This explains why I knew so much about women all my life, but had to be taught the ways of this world through a man's eyes, as if I was a live experiment that someone was watching, because I have been and still am. We show our twins how the opposite mate should or should not act, so they can learn as well, how to interact and find their joy when it comes their turn. On and on this goes, until finally, both will incarnate possibly in the next age to teach or create. I have no idea, but their time to come together will happen, and all that they have learned will be revealed and how they apply it. I began to see the story of Adam and Eve and all the stories of the first couples and cultures very differently. It was no longer who was right or wrong in their eschatological views of creation, but who understands this and is trying to flow in the divine with it. This is why the twin flame relationship as taught in modern times, is so heartbreaking and rough. It is breaking down ancient barriers between your own soul to bring about a marriage that is beyond this world. I found this in Christ and his bride allegories, Pistis Sophia, Isis and Osiris, Shiva and Shakti, and so many other examples of which escape my mind at this writing, as I am just letting this all flow from me with nothing but a spell checker going here and access to images to place on the pages and a thesaurus to mix it up a bit. But in time, it will all make sense. This is why degradation of the opposite sex is a crime, not only to them, but you and all the souls of this universe. What you do to me, you do to yourself. And what I do to you, I do to myself. And we do these things to us. This is what the twin flame relationship with yourself leads to. Treating others as divine as you because you are divine. Yes, you have a twin flame contract going here that cannot be stopped, but it ultimately leads to the final revelation of yourself in the divine. As Christ said, we are the same. This is called Brahman and the Jiva Mukta. You are one.